Okay, question 27. The mean score of 8 players in a basketball game was 14.5 points. If the highest individual score is removed, the mean score of the remaining 7 players becomes 12 points. What was the highest score? Okay, so this question is the mean, that means the average. Okay, so average question. And sometimes the average question we had to solve for the average to give us some number we can solve for the average. But then there are some other type of question like this one, where they give us the average, and we know the mean for the 8 players is 14.5. So for this type of question, it's helpful to think in terms of the sum. Okay, so the total number of points. So what happens is this. So if you have the average of 8 players is 14.5. So we take the total. We don't know the individual score, okay, but we know if the total for the 8 player, if we say this is the total, okay, or the sum, we divide it by whatever the total is, we divide it by 8, because there are 8 players, okay, that should give us the average. Okay, to find the average, we take the total divided by however many people we have, so total divided by 8, that should give us the average, which is 14.5. Okay, so total divided by 8 is 14.5. So we can actually solve for the total here, okay, by multiplying by 8 on both sides. Okay, so multiply by 8 on both sides, we get the total is 14.5 times 8, which is 116. Okay, so the total number of points that we have should be 116 points for those 8 players. Okay, so again, we don't know the individual score, but we know their total have to be 116. Otherwise, they won't be able to average 14.5. All right. Okay, so for the first group, 8 people, total is 116. Now, if we're gonna remove the highest score, okay, so we're gonna remove 1 player. So the remaining 7 players, the average is 12. So we can do a similar process here, right? So the total for those 7 players now. Okay, so this second calculation is when we only have 7 players. Right, the first total, this is when we have 8 players. Okay. We have to keep that in mind. The first one's 8 player, total is 116. And we have 7 players. We can solve for the total for those 7 players. Now we have to divide by 7. That should give us the average, which is 12. Okay. So average, which is 12. So solve for total, we can time multiply by 7 on both sides. So the total is 12 times 7, which is 84. Right? 84. Okay. So now we remove the player, one player. Then the total now is 84. Okay. So see, what we can do is we can compare these two numbers, right? So we have 8 players, the total is 116. Now we remove a player, and remove a player. Now we have 7 players, and we get 84 for our total. So how many points does it decrease? Okay, we go down by 116 minus 84. We solve that. The change here is, it should be 32, right? 32 points. So the total, we remove 1 player, total decreased by 32. That means that 1 player, the score for that player should be 32 points, because that's where the difference is, right? We remove that player, the total decrease by 32. So this had to be the point for that player that we remove. Okay, so the highest, and that player happened to have the highest score, so that should be 32. So letter C for question 27. Okay, so for this question, we had to think in terms of the total, and we compare the total for the two groups, because it's not possible to solve for the score for all the other 7 players for the individual score. All we can do is compare the total, and we can figure out the 1 player that we remove had to score 32 points. Okay, so for question 27, the answer should be C.